Good morning, everybody. My name is Santosh Balakrishnan, and I work with the French Network Information Center. I'm an R&D engineer there. It doesn't work, it seems. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about a tool called Zonemaster, which is a tool used for DNS validation. So this project has been it has been working with AFNIC, the French registry, and the Swedish registry IS. We started it like 3 years ago, and we are planning to maintain for another 2 years. Both the companies have agreed to work on this project for the next 2 years also. So to set it as a preamble, I always start with this slide, which I took it from the NHS. Our body, even though we have a lot of issues, we are alive. But lots of research has put into saying that different parts of the body has different medical tests, and we have to do it to make sure that our body is fit. So I call that as a comprehensive health check. So similarly for DNS, we have different parts for the DNS zone where we have to test. Even though your website works, sometimes you will have issues. So we need a tool to have a comprehensive test for the DNS. What do we do? Let's take an example. I did a test with RMLL. It's a logiciel libre in France. It's like the FOSDEM in France. So I did a test with a tool that we always use, dig. So what happens when I do a dig, the site works. But when I do the same test using Zonemaster, a comprehensive test, I use the Zonemaster CLI. I'm not sure whether it is clear. We have issues here that are 1 warning and 2 notices. So there is one name server that is not properly working. So that is why we need to have a comprehensive tool for validating DNS zone. But there are a number of tools in there, open source, paid, and everything. And why Zonemaster is different? The Zonemaster targets different types of people. If you're just a user, you want to check your website, you go to the SAS, the public GUI, zonemaster.net, and enter your domain name and have the results to see whether your zone, the zone for your website or a domain name is healthy. Then for advanced users, you can install the engine, which is the Perl library, which does the comprehensive test, and use a interface, the command line interface. You should also install that, and you can do various customizations to see how your zone or of a domain is working. Then if you are a guy, if you are a registry or a registrar, or somebody who has a portfolio of domain names, like 100,000 domain names, you want to test all the domain names. You want to test all the domain names in a batch, and then you want to store them in somewhere in a database, see the history, whether it has worked in 2015, now it is working, what was the difference. You can also do that by installing the backend and the GUI. You can have your own interface. And then you can also call the Zonemaster Perl library from your own application. So these are the different target users that we planned with the Zonemaster. So this is an example of rmll.info, which we test using the graphical user interface, the website. And you see there is an issue, the yellow color. Now, how do you test from the CLI? So you install the CLI in your own system, computer, and then you use Zonemaster-CLI and run your domain. Then there are different, it's not clear, as you can see that if you have different levels of customization. For example, if you want to test only with IPv4, if you want to test certain tests and not others, if you want to change the level of the debug, you can have debug 1, 2, 3. There are different prospects with the Zonemaster, so you can use that with the CLI. You can also use, there is also a JSON RPC interface. There's an API where you can call from your application to run and then get results. So the first one shows that you have started a test and you got an ID, and the second here shows that with this ID you get the results. So this is the result in JSON. How do you run a batch test? When I call a batch test, you run like 5, 10, 100,000 domains. So similarly, you call the JSON RPC, you put the number of domains, you add a batch job, you call the method add batch job, and you have an API and user key, and then you run the test, you get a response with an ID, and you can use this ID to get the number of results. So this is, for example, where I'm showing is that there are about 200 tests. There are 5 tests that has been finished, and 195 tests are running. So there is an API documentation in GitHub which is being updated. There have been some feedbacks that it is not properly documented, so we are updating that. Then you can also call from your application, from your own software. You call the library. You can use commands like this. I know you are more expert than me, so you can use this to get the results. Now, this is how the top one is a local implementation by the Swedish registry, where they are using Zonemaster. And the second one is used by a company called Pingdom, where they're testing all the government sites in Sweden to show whether it is properly using DNSSEC or not. So they are using Zonemaster. So these are the 2 examples. If you see Zonemaster Brave, it is an open source project, and all the code is in BSD2 license. It has been vastly documented. That is one of the main differences between other tools and the Zonemaster. I will go deep into that afterwards. So all the documentation is using the Creative Commons license. So what our objective was that, when I say our objective, both the Swedish registry and the French registry, to create Zonemaster as a tool that should be used by everybody to test the zone validity for the DNS zone. You can use it for delegated and non-delegated zones. When I say non-delegated zones, it is not already there in the DNS. You can test them. There are 3 types of interfaces: CLI, web, and API. We can have different levels of output. You can have high, medium, and low levels of output. You can have the output in web, HTML, text, and JSON. Now we are supporting 4 languages: English, French, Swedish, and Danish. And you can also customize it according to your needs. I will also go deep into that. As of now, we are supporting for OS, Debian, CentOS, FreeBSD, and Ubuntu. It might not be all the versions have been supported, but we are trying to keep it updated. So I told you earlier about the documentation. So when we started, before both IIS, the Swedish registry, and AFNIC, the French registry, we had our own validation tool, DNS zone validation tool. AFNIC was using ZoneCheck, and IIS was using DNS check. So both of them, when they wanted to update it, we thought that we will create a new tool. So the first thing that we said was that there was not enough documentation. So we had to have that enough documentation. So what we did was we took all the requirements from these tools, existing tools. We removed the tests that were obsolete. We added some of the new tests. And every time there was a new requirement, we have a review and saying that this is the test that should be updated. We update it like requirements. And then we put them under 8 different categories. So as of now, we have like 84 tests classified into 8 different categories. And all these tests are documented like this. For example, take this first test. We say that why do we do this test, and which BCP or RFC says that this test should be done, then how this test should be done. So everything is documented. So once it is documented, so that's why it is getting delayed. We put the source, we write the source code only when the complete documentation is done and reviewed. So in case tomorrow, if you want to develop your own tool, you can just go into this documentation and use your own, develop your own tool for a zone validation, DNS zone validation. So what do we have as implementation? We have Perl and JavaScript. Most of the code is written in Perl. Only the GUI part, we have some JavaScript. So there were being some feedbacks about the GUI that is not perfect. So we are developing a new GUI, and it is being prospectively, it should be up in the May of 2018. And we have a LDNS resolver that we use for using the NetLDNS, NLNet Labs library. So the results, how do we have the logs? The logs, we can have a human readable form. You can have with the tags, which you could use it in your own application in raw format. Then you can have it in JSON format. And also you can configure the results depending upon what you would like to have. Like we have different levels of configurations: info, notice, warning, error, and critical. So that you can modify depending upon your requirements. So this is an example of how we have the severity of the different tests. Tomorrow you say the DNS sec as of now is info or notice. You say it should be created warning or error. You can modify that. Then you can also decide on which test to run. For example, in syntax we have 8 tests. You say that I don't want to run syntax 06, so you can put it as 0, and that test will not be running. You can also go into the configurations of how the resolver should work, whether if you want to test only with IPv6 or IPv4, that also could be done. And for fine-graining the tests, we can say, for example, if you have a domain and you know that one of the name servers is not working and you don't want to have a error on that, you can just put it as a warning. So these are the different configuration levels that you can do in Zonemaster to adapt to yourself. And we have decided to make, currently these are different files. So we will have only one file in the future, which is called the profile file. So you can just change it and use Zonemaster CLI-profile, and then you can run your domain based upon your configurations. So we have configured features in the GUI where we have like for example here the YANA profile, but currently it is obsolete. So the new GUI will update that. Then regarding standardization efforts, we tried to standardize it in the IETF. It didn't go well. There were a lot of positive as well as negative feedbacks. So currently we are planning to push it as a best practice document at RIPE. So it is in a to do thing. So who are all using Zonemaster? IIS has its own implementation. CIRA, the Canadian registry, is using it. DK Hostmaster has their own implementation. As I showed, Pingdom has that. RIPE NCC is using it. And ICANN has recently confirmed that it will be using Zonemaster for PDT. And registrars like GoDaddy and OVH in their websites are linking back to the Zonemaster. Center, the Council of European National Top-Level Domains, is planning to use Zonemaster for statistics purpose. And you all to test Zonemaster, give us feedback and contributions. So this is the different references we have. Everything is in GitHub. If you want to give feedback, we have this mailing list. That's it. Did I go fast?
No, you have 7 minutes in between questions.
Okay, so that's it. I tried to go fast because. So, questions?
Yep. I have 2 questions. Number 1 is, where do you store the data? Do you have a database in the backend to store all the results for the history?
For example, if you use zonemaster.net, everything is stored in our own system, all this information.
And the second question, is it possible to have multiple engines or at least multiple worldwide distributed probes? Because if you use any cast DNS, it may work from one side of the world, but it may be broken on the other side of the world.
I think you can launch multiple engines, yeah. I have not done that, but I think you can do that. Yeah.
Is there any plans to support ED25519 on the Zonemaster?
What was that?
To support ED25519 algorithm?
The new
elliptical code. I think you can start an issue in GitHub, and then we will decide, the team will decide whether we need it or not. Then we will update the algorithm, test case. Okay.
Any other questions?
No? Maybe I have a general question, because at least this is a rather small community, and I guess I know half of the people here in the room, but only by name, not by faces.
Yeah.
So maybe I would be interested in having like a short introduction round where everybody says just its name and the software or the company is working on. To get networking done with people.
If there are no more questions from those, right now we have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yep.
on the Zonemaster gives notifications for minimum values. Where does the minimum values come from? Recommendations for them?
The minimum value came from the, I think it's from the RS3 or it's the RIPE BCP, I'm not sure. You had something?
Yeah, but it doesn't say on the site where you said that everything has an
Okay.
definition that comes from RC or something, but it doesn't say on the website where it came from.
Where it came from, I'll note the pointer. Yeah, I see that. Thank you.
Okay.